Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the 2011 Huffy Superia 26-inch 15-speed adult men's mountain bike. This bicycle has a lot of pros and cons, more pros than cons. So the positives are that I enjoy the bike. I've ridden it for 1.5 months with minimal problems. I've recorded my time of using it outside, so it's 110 hours so far, traveling 923 miles. And when I ride it, I smile, I feel happy. It's just, the bike feels fine on the road. I haven't used it as a mountain bike. I don't have any intention of doing that because, let's face it, a $63 Kmart mountain bike from China is not going to be the greatest thing on actual mountain bike trails. But I bought this thing because it just appealed to me. The price was really good. And it seems simple. It just has a rigid steel frame that is compatible with BMX and beach cruiser bicycles. So I could transplant any beach cruiser parts I had in case the stock parts weren't so great on the mountain bike. And it had a five-speed freewheel, and I didn't know they made those anymore. So it just seemed like a very retro kind of bike with a lot of proven technology. And because it has a one-piece crank, that means I can just easily take it apart, inspect it, overhaul the bottom bracket, put grease in, put it back together, adjust the bearing cones, and just be on my way. It doesn't seem as complicated as other types of bottom bracket and crank technologies. And I have to say the tires, the knobby tires, they have center lines, so they work very well on the road. They are quiet, they roll very smoothly. I've been quite pleased with the stock tires. The brakes have never been a problem, just a really cheap, low-end, old-fashioned side pull brakes. But they do work, and they have worked when I really needed to stop to. And the gear ratio, the gain ratios are from 2.0 to 7.0, so that's really more than I need. But it is a pleasure to just calmly and with minimal effort just ride up a long hill, like say the Clearwater Memorial Causeway, which is quite a high bridge over the Intercoastal Waterway. And just be able to just ride up and admire the scenery, just enjoy the slow ride up with the 28-tooth chainring and the 28-tooth sprocket. And when there's a tailwind on flat ground, to ride in the 48-tooth chainring and the 14-tooth sprocket. That's really a very dominating feeling compared to riding a beach cruiser where the drivetrain spins out when I'm sprinting. And actually a few days ago, I was riding toward a hill, and instead of shifting down to make it easier, I shifted up to make it harder, and it was kind of fun to just do hard work and be able to stand up on the bike and go up the hill faster. And the bike really looks great with the stickers removed. The adhesive really stuck on from those stickers, and Goo Gone did not work, so I had to use charcoal barbecue lighter fluid, which is kerosene and naphtha, and that really quickly took off that residue of the stickers. And it didn't affect the clear coat either of the paint job. But I did take the stickers off on day one of having the bike because they did look rather juvenile and loud and aggressive, and I don't like seeing bikes where they're just advertising their brand. I just like a plain, clean, simple machine. And also riding a Huffy bike around is not exactly a way to inspire prestige, thoughts of prestige in others. And I did read all the 1-star bad reviews of this model and other Huffy mountain bikes. And I looked at videos about Huffy mountain bikes on the web. And it seemed like all the problems did have answers. And for $63 for a bicycle, I mean, I have a big balance for my Amazon gift card because I'm using Amazon Mechanical Turk to get money for bicycle expenses. And so I figured I could just buy replacement parts or transplant beach cruiser parts over, and the bike would work fine, and it has. So on to the negatives and the cons of the bike. The worst one is the factory or the assembler only put in 16 ball bearings into the rear hub when there's supposed to be 18. So since all the forces of a bicycle are concentrated in the rear hub, you really want to have the correct amount of mechanical support. And to just, whether through negligence or inattention or, I suspect, just wanting to save material and money at the factory to lower costs, they're knocking out 11.1% of the support back there. So fortunately, I happen to have the correct size ball bearings on hand, so I just put in all new ones, grade 25 ball bearings, just to be extra sure they were okay. But still, I don't think having 8 ball bearings on each side is rideable, and it's just a shocking thing that would happen in the 21st century. Because a freewheel hub, it's pretty well known and standardized that you need 9 ball bearings on each side. I mean, if they're going to use 8, why not just use 7 in a bearing cage like in a coaster brake, if they're going to be that cheap about it? Secondly, the derailleurs were installed. They were just put on. They weren't really installed or tuned up. And the rear derailleur hanger was bent. So when those pulleys are not aligned correctly, you're never going to have good shifting. But fortunately, there's plenty of information on the internet how to deal with all these problems. and it shifts quite well. But for a few weeks, the shift lever for the rear derailleur, it had a very hard time going from first to second gear, but I noticed I could just tilt the lever up and away from the handlebar and get it over whatever was blocking it in there, because it was taking all of my arm strength to try to move it just one tiny distance to the right. So just lifting it up and moving it several times back and forth, that seemed to fix the problem. But still, I don't know what's wrong in there, what broke, or if it's just a design defect. But for $63, I don't think you're getting top-of-the-line components. And if you think of the tires being retail value of $10, it's really a $43 amount of hardware I'm riding on. So, I'm not going into this bike with huge expectations of it being the ultimate Harmony abandoned machine. But always shifting up from second to first, that always worked fine. Just going back, it would take so much force, which triggered feelings of disappointment and frustration on the road. But I think that problem is solved now, and I did buy friction shifters, which I intend to use after like a year of using the stock shifters, because I don't see any point to having index shifters on a recreational bike. Index shifting would be useful for racers who are surrounded by a peloton, and there's people yelling from the side of the race course, and there's helicopters and motorcycles around. Then I think not having the sound of shifting cleanly, that could be a problem. But for me, riding alone through a big bike trail or on a road, index shifting just adds needless complication. The third big con was the assembly, the general lack of lubrication. The pedal threads had no lubrication at all. They were very over-tightened and difficult to remove. No grease at all on the stem or the seat post, the saddle clamp. So whoever did the assembly was not thoughtful, caring, and even like 1/10 of the way to being a perfectionist, to wanting to deliver the best experience to the customer. Another con was the freewheel, the outer bearing cone thing. It was loose and rattling, and it was made a ringing sound when I was riding, and then it would also make a sound like and then it would grind when I was coasting. So that was loose from the store. And when I went to, this is not Huffy's fault or the store's fault, when I went to tighten it, I didn't know it was reverse threaded, so the whole thing fell apart and opened up. Fortunately, the internet came to the rescue. There was a good, clear page with photos of how to put it back together. So now that everything's back together, I have marine boat trailer grease in there, and everything's tightened down. I used a punch and a hammer as recommended, because I don't have a pin spanner. But it is tight and very quiet, but I do find I have to retighten it after every, 150 miles or so, because it did start ringing and making a grinding sound again after about 3 weeks after rebuilding the freewheel. The stem, that was way too short for me. I'm 5 feet and 11 inches tall. So there was a lot of wrist and palm and forearm pain trying to ride that bike. So I had to lower the seat post and wear the thinnest possible shoes, thinnest soled shoes, just to make the bike somewhat comfortable with that short stem. But fortunately, Amazon had plenty of long 22.2 millimeter stems available. And it just makes a world of difference to having the arms at the correct height, the same level as the saddle. And speaking of the saddle, it was terrible. The reviewers were right at Kmart.com. Just really uncomfortable. There's no possible position that I could adjust it to where it would feel okay. And I just used it for 2 days. I gave it a chance for 2 days and threw it away, because I happen to have a cruiser saddle on hand. And having a spring saddle on that bike, it's so much better, because the stock saddle, it's arched when you look at it from the front. There's no groove in the center, so all the 100% of the pressure on the rider is right down the center. It's just a straight line. And it really hurts. It takes about 10 minutes to start hurting. So you can forget about riding all day in comfort with the stock saddle. It's just shocking why they would make that design when it's so obvious that having that center groove, that's a much better way to do it. But I did save the saddle clamp and nuts and bolts, though, so it wasn't a complete loss. Another con, the stickers were not applied carefully. On day one, I noticed they were dirty under the edge. There were little peeling areas, so it was really no big loss to remove the stickers. And they did peel off easily by hand. The handlebar grips were just really simple cylinders. They didn't have much cushioning at all. And combine those with the short stem, and it was just really an uncomfortable experience for me. But Amazon had ergonomic grips, so it makes a huge difference to have palm support and a softer material. And the grips were quite difficult to remove too. So those are all the negatives I can think of. Each negative has a solution. You just have to be your own mechanic. You have to take the place of the factory worker and the assembler to make this bike roadworthy and comfortable. But I've had a lot of fun with it. It rides beautifully. It's very quiet on the road. It feels very rugged and strong and reliable. And it's nice after 3 years of using beach cruisers to have all that extra range of gain ratio. Because now I can keep a nice fast cadence and just constantly be inputting energy into the bike And when not just pushing slowly like I would be on a beach cruiser upwind, I can spin the crank comfortably and still, it takes patience to go into a strong headwind. But I have to say, my territory of cycling, everything is coming up faster than it seemed to before with beach cruisers. And I've been keeping a spreadsheet of my times and distances and expenses. So my real world kilometers per hour is 13.49. That's including parking and walking around and drinking water and all that, waiting at intersections. So I just note the time when I'm leaving and coming back within the nearest 5 minutes. So I'm keeping a running total of my time out and my distance traveled. But for the beach cruisers, the average speed was 12.67 kph. So that's 0.82 kilometers per hour faster. And it doesn't sound like much, but it does make the world feel smaller. And the nice way of doing that kind of record keeping is that eventually I won't need to have a bike computer on the machine because any one ride isn't going to shift that average speed up or down too much. Oh, another con, the pedals, the stock pedals were really lightweight and flimsy feeling. And other reviewers said they were falling off in the first month, and another YouTube video had the guy showing it cracked in 1 month. And I did see a pedal matching the design on the road, all cracked and ruined, so fortunately I happen to have some Mongoose BMX pedals on hand, so I removed the stock pedals, added grease, and put on the BMX ones, just to be extra safe. So the Huffy Superia is a really cheap piece of junk, let's admit it, let's face it, and it's not recommended for someone expecting a great bike from the get-go. But if you have a fleet of beach cruisers or BMX bikes where you can transplant parts over, you have some bike maintenance experience, and you know what size parts to get to make the bike fit you if you're a tall rider. I mean, I think this bike would fit a 5'5" rider fine. I mean, the stem only needed to be like 3/4 of an inch higher than it was from the factory for me. And I would think someone could get by just buying a gel pad for the saddle, maybe, if they were being super cheap about it. But I like this kind of bike because all your money is going into the bike. It aren't going into diminishing returns and dealing with... I just don't think that a bike should cost more than, say, $250. Because the technology of bicycles, it's more than a century old, and it's just metal tubes and fasteners and ball bearings and some rubber. Doesn't seem like it should be $1,000 or $3,000 expense. So the cost-benefit ratio of this machine is quite favorable, as long as you know that there will be disappointments. You'll have to basically disassemble and reassemble the bike yourself. And one thing I did with the bike is that because I have a Huffy Cranbrook cruiser, and its stock inner tubes are 26-inch universal tubes, and they were really bad, so I did not use the Huffy Superia's inner tubes at all. I just put in thicker inner tubes with slime sealant, and I used Huffy failed inner tubes, just slice them open, and use those as tire liners. So hopefully those will be strong and will protect the inner tubes from getting punctured. Oh, another con I just thought of, the lower cup in the headset. That's kind of centered, permanently locked and being centered now. It doesn't affect my riding. I can steer, but just going over cobblestones or through construction zones or in the first week of riding, that apparently the ball bearings dented up into the bearing cup. So I can, it's not a show-stopping problem, but I ordered a walled cruiser headset, but I think I'll just continue using the stock dented one for at least a year. And I haven't done much off-road riding with this machine. Just yesterday, actually, I was in a construction area with compacted gray sand with construction vehicle tracks all over it. And I used the lowest possible gear, and it was kind of fun to just ride uphill, because I couldn't ride uphill in higher gears. But the rear knobby tire worked well. It was nice to make progress through the sand. So I think for very slow, moderate, beginner-type mountain biking activities, this might be a good bike, but I just am going to use it for recreation and transportation. And once the knobby tires wear out, I'm going to get smooth tires for it. Smoother and thinner tires for the road. And one good thing about the bike, the seat post was surprisingly long enough for me, with my long legs. But I happen to have an even longer seat post, so I transplanted that over and they put the mountain bike seat post on a cruiser. Oh, another thing any customer should know, the rims are not aluminum, they're just steel painted light gray, glossy light gray. So that's kind of deceptive, I think. Because if you go to the store, at first glance, it does look like a regular aluminum rim. But who knows, maybe steel is stronger. But I have to say, the rear rim has a dent in it. I don't know if that was from the store or from riding, I don't know. But I don't recall any big crash or bump that I was involved in. And as much as I'd like to complain about index shifting, after you break it in and the cables are stretched, it is working quite reliably. It's kind of neat to Just move the lever one click, and then there's a little half-second delay, and then that just locks in the shifting on the sprocket back there. But the front shifter, that takes a lot of effort to get it up to the big ring. And the bash guard on the chain ring, that cracked on the first day because the chain went too far to the right. So I might just take that plastic ring off of the chain ring. And a good thing is Amazon has triple chain rings for one-piece cranks. So it's like $14 to totally replace the thing if it ever becomes necessary. But I have to say, I used to have a Dahan folding bike with 16-inch wheels. And when I'm in the middle chain ring on the second sprocket, second biggest sprocket, I guess you'd say, second gear, the bike feels a lot like that folding bike, just excellent acceleration, easy cruising, easy hill handling. Just a great sprocket combination for just riding around in city or populated areas, riding around strip malls where there's start and stop traffic and pedestrians around. And this bike, it's a great 3-speed bike if you just have the middle chain ring and the middle 3 sprockets in the back. That's really more technology than I need, actually. I don't mind walking a bike uphill if necessary. It is healthy to get off the bike and walk, because then you're doing some load-bearing exercise. So would I recommend this bicycle? Absolutely not, unless you have bike tools. You need a freewheel puller to open up that hub to inspect it to make sure the ball bearings are there. And it's a good idea to add grease into hubs and do your own bearing cone adjustments on new bikes. So you should have a cone wrench, the Park Tool FR-1.2 freewheel remover, a long crescent wrench to get leverage on the freewheel remover. I used a quick grip carpenter's vise to hold the side pull brakes in while I'm tightening the cables. And then having a metric socket wrench set helped. And I just used regular marine boat trailer grease for all the lubrication. It's worked perfectly on cruisers and coaster brakes, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work on this new. Basically, it's just a stronger cruiser with the derailleur on it. And I figure $63, that's about the price of a night in a hotel and a couple of pizzas, or the price of a good pair of work boots. So $63 for a bike that I've gone almost 1,000 miles on with minimum trouble. Lots of good experiences getting outdoors in the sunshine and fresh air, seeing wildlife and the wilderness along the bike trail. It's really a great product. But because you don't have the expertise of a local bike shop building the thing and having a relationship with the dealer, you're just using Kmart and whoever they hire. You really should have some experience in building your own bike. But all that information is right out there. There are YouTube videos on how to do it. And I bought a foot pump from Harbor Freight. You can see my video on YouTube about that. So just pumping up those tires to 55 PSI. The bike really is excellent on the road. People recommend never buying a big box retail department store bike and never riding a mountain bike on the road. I'm doing both. I'm loving it. I'm happy. It's better than a beach cruiser. I mean, I switch back to a beach cruiser now and just feel so sluggish and uncomfortable to ride it. But the beach cruisers are good for just if you're going to park the thing for a long time, you don't want your good bike to get stolen. So beach cruisers are great for like within 10 miles of home for running errands, but for just long rides, this mountain bike is quite excellent on paved bike trails. So I hope this video has been informative, and thank you for watching.